Alright guys, welcome to part number 4 of my MLB end of year award prediction series. It's a very long name for this, but it is what it is. But this is installment number 4. We already talked about the National League and American League Rookie of the Year predictions. We also talked earlier today, actually, about the National League Cy Young predictions. So now, naturally, we're going to be talking about the American League Cy Young. Remember, anything I say other than giving you actual, grounded statistics, anything other than that is pretty much my own opinion. So if you guys have a disagreement or you guys have a counterpoint to anything that I'm saying, please go ahead and leave it down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. I love talking baseball, so make sure you guys go down there, but also have a little bit of substance behind your comments. Don't just say that, this guy should have won because he was on a playoff team. That's not always the case. So let me know what you guys think and, give me a solid, rounded argument that we can look at down in the comments. So with the National League Cy Young, I pretty much feel like there's a clear-cut winner in those 3 candidates. Pretty sure most people can look at that and be like, yeah, Jacob deGrom is the guy. He should win the National League Cy Young. But for the American League, I kind of thought it was going to be similar for me. I thought by the end of the video, I was just going to 100% be like, yeah, Blake Snell's the guy. Easy. But there's a lot of different statistics and, guys have certain numbers on other guys that might sway you one way or the other, and it's a lot closer than I actually thought it was going to be. So let's go ahead and look at the numbers, let's look at the stats of all 3 guys, and then let's go ahead and compare and kind of see who we think is going to win. Let's go ahead and start off with Blake Snell from the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, the Tampa Bay Rays had a very interesting season. They won over 90 games. I can't remember if it was 90 exactly or if it was over 90, but the Tampa Bay Rays performed way beyond anybody's expectations this season, and a main reason for that was Blake Snell, the consistency he was able to bring to the mound for that team, always, just locking it down start after start. He was so good this season. If you take a look at the numbers, he had a 1.89 ERA, a sub-2 ERA. That's a common theme for some of these Cy Young videos. So he had a 1.89 ERA in 31 starts, 180.2 innings pitched in those starts. He only gave up 38 earned runs. He only gave up 112 hits. He had 221 strikeouts to 64 walks, an ERA plus of 219. He had a whip of 0.974, 5.6 hits per 9, 0.8 home runs per 9, 3.2 walks per 9, and a 11 strikeout per 9 ratio. And what's really interesting to me about Blake Snell is, yeah, he had an amazing season, a 1.89 ERA, but you look at the season before that, he had a 4.04 ERA, and then even before that, a 3.5 ERA. I don't know what changed in Blake Snell's, I don't know if it was his delivery or if it was something in his mechanics. I don't know what changed, but this season he was just lights out. It was you would not even think it was the same pitcher if you looked at the last 2 seasons compared to this one. So Blake Snell, obviously very good all year long for the Tampa Bay Rays. Now let's go ahead and move on to the American League West, where we're going to take a look at the ace of the Houston Astros, Justin Verlander. So this was Justin Verlander's first full season with the Astros. Obviously, he got traded last year at the deadline to them and then helped them win the World Series. So this was the first season where he was going to be all year long with the Houston Astros, and he did not disappoint. The trade worked out so well for them. Taking a look at Justin Verlander's season, he had a 2.52 ERA in 34 starts. 214 innings went into those 34 starts. He had 290 strikeouts to 37 walks. He allowed 60 earned runs, 28 home runs, 156 hits. He had an ERA plus of 159. He had a 0.902 whip, 6.6 hits per 9, 1.2 home runs per 9, 1.6 walks per 9, and 12.2 strikeouts per 9. So once again, Justin Verlander, it's almost like he gets better with age. He had a couple little rough years there in Detroit. People were thinking, oh, Justin Verlander's done, it's over, the reign of the champion is done. But then nope, this trade to Houston last year pretty much revitalized him, and he is just as good, if not better, than he's ever been, and he's playing on one of the best teams in the MLB. So Justin Verlander continues to impress, he continues to be good, and he's just he's the best. Like, he might be the best pitcher in the game overall. Like, if I have a one-game playoff, I think Justin Verlander is the guy that I want on the mound more than anybody else. Justin Verlander is just so good all the time. Then we're going to go over to the Central. We're going to talk about Corey Kluber. A lot of people thought that Trevor Bauer actually had a better year than Corey Kluber, and you could totally debate that, but Corey Kluber was named a finalist, so we're only going to focus on him and not Trevor Bauer. So all you Bauer outage fans, I'm sorry, he's not a finalist. That's just, I didn't pick it, the MLB did. So for Corey Kluber, he had a 2.89 ERA in 33 starts. He had 215 innings pitched. He gave up 179 hits, 222 strikeouts to 34 walks, 25 home runs on the season with 69 earned runs. He had a ERA plus of 151, a whip of 0.991, a 1.4 walks per nine with a 9.3 strikeouts per nine, a 1.0 home runs per nine, and a 7.5 hits per nine. So Corey Kluber, the Indians had an interesting season this year because the American League Central was without a doubt the worst division in baseball this year, and I think that showed when they played the Astros in the playoffs. They just got kind of destroyed. The Indians were not that good against good competition, but they were able to easily run away with that division. But Corey Kluber was still really good for them all year long. He was able to pitch against good competition, which we'll get into later on in this video. Corey Kluber and Trevor Bauer, both of those guys were really strong points of that Indians rotation, and they helped them get to the playoffs and win that division. But Corey Kluber he was just consistent this year. He was super good. You could always rely on him, and Corey Kluber really did a lot for the Indians. So now, after looking at all the individual stats, what I like to do is I like to put all three of them together and take pretty much all the major stats and see who led between the three of them in those stats. So let's go ahead and talk about that. For ERA and ERA plus, both of those will go to Blake Snell. He did lead all three of those in those categories. Innings pitched, Corey Kluber had the most at 215. Blake Snell gave up the fewest amount of hits. He gave up the fewest amount of earned runs and the fewest amount of home runs. Corey Kluber gave up the fewest amount of walks. Justin Verlander had the most strikeouts. Justin Verlander had the lowest overall whip out of these guys. Blake Snell had the lowest home runs per nine. Kluber had the lowest walks per nine, and Verlander had the highest strikeouts per nine. So once again, going back to what I talked about early on in this video, a lot of these guys lead in different categories. Like Blake Snell kind of was like the lowest amount of runs type of dude. Verlander was kind of the high strikeouts, keep guys off base. Kluber was kind of the low hits, kind of, you know, just consistent guy all year long. They all had their respective areas where they were truly the best in the American League. And going off that, we can take a look at what they led the league in. For Kluber, he led the American League in walks per nine and innings pitched. Verlander led the American League in whip, strikeouts, games started, and the strikeout to walk ratio. And then for Blake Snell, he led the American League in WAR for pitchers. He led the league in ERA, hits per nine. He was second behind Verlander in whip, and he was third in the home runs per nine. So they were all at the top of the league in multiple different categories. And when I went over the numbers for the National League Cy Young, there was one thing that I did where I really wanted to get a view on how they played against good competition, and in that one, Jacob deGrom was by far and away the best pitcher against playoff teams. So I did the same thing. I took all three of these guys, I looked at their game logs, and I calculated their ERA versus playoff teams throughout the regular season. Corey Kluber had a 2.87 ERA against playoff teams. Super good. Sub 3 ERA against teams that made the postseason. Amazing. So Corey Kluber already very impressive. Justin Verlander had a 2.24 ERA against playoff teams. Once again, all super impressive. Blake Snell had a 2.08 ERA against playoff teams. So they all had a sub 2.90 ERA against playoff teams. So I can't really choose a winner in that category because they were all really freaking good against good competition. The only thing though is that I can't really lean towards Corey Kluber winning anything this year for the Cy Young because, yes, his team did play in the weakest division in baseball, and he had the highest ERA against playoff teams in this group of three guys. So if you play in a weak division and you were the lowest of the three against good teams, I just think you got to look at the guys who were in the two tougher divisions. The American League West and the American League East were way more tough than the American League Central, and these guys had lower ERA against the good teams in their division. I think this one is pretty much between Blake Snell and Justin Verlander at this point. So when you look at Blake Snell and you look at Justin Verlander, they obviously had two very, very strong seasons. One thing that's a little interesting is Verlander had about like 40 more innings pitched than Blake Snell. Blake Snell didn't hit 200. He was about 180 or so, and I think Verlander was around the 220 mark. So Verlander had a lot more innings pitched, but I think that shouldn't really have that much of an impact, because it'd be different if Verlander had 220 innings pitched and Snell had like 100. But the fact is, Snell still had 180 innings pitched. He was really, really strong all year long. I don't think the innings pitched difference can really be that big of a deal in this. Overall, guys, after looking at all the numbers and kind of just figuring it out, for me personally, the least amount of runs that you can allow is going to make me lean more towards you, and that's why I'm leaning more towards Blake Snell in the American League Cy Young than Justin Verlander. Blake Snell just had such a good year in terms of not allowing runs. He had a 1.89 ERA. He had the lowest ERA of all three of these guys against postseason contending teams, and he had he only gave up 16 home runs on the season, only 112 hits. Verlander gave up over 150, I believe. So like, he did a really, really good job at just preventing runs from scoring. And don't forget, he was in the division with two 100-win teams, the Yankees and the Red Sox. American League West was projected to be a little bit better than it was. Like, people thought the Angels were going to do a lot better. The Oakland A's kind of surprised a lot of people this year. So Verlander did his job. He pitched really good against them, but Snell had to do it against two teams that won 100 games, and he allowed a fewer amount of runs than Verlander did. Overall, guys, it's kind of tough, but I think I got to go with Blake Snell on this one. I know his team didn't make the playoffs or anything like that, but he won 90 games with the Tampa Bay Rays, and you know, you can't do much when you're only starting once every 5 days. He did his job every 5 days, but you know, sometimes that's the way it goes. When you got two 100-win teams and you win 90, when you win 90 games, you honestly expect to probably make the playoffs, but in that division, it's just tough. So I'm going to go ahead and lean towards Blake Snell. The low ERA is really what is selling me on this, just not allowing a lot of runs, especially pitching in that division against that competition. That really is selling it for me. So Blake Snell is my American League Cy Young pick, guys, but it was a lot closer than I expected it to be. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think Snell is the guy? Do you think Verlander's the guy? Do you think Kluber deserves a little bit more recognition than he's getting from myself? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. But either way, guys, drop a thumbs up on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.